Welcome back. Today we're jumping right into part 4 of our Explainer series on the 8-part tutorial, IPv6 Troubleshooting for System Administrators and Technical Support. This comes straight from Virtualization Options LLC, a Colorado-based tech advisory group. If you're a sysadmin or tech support pro who already knows IPv4 inside and out, but you're now spearheading your organization's migration to IPv6, you are in exactly the right place. Let's break down the most critical troubleshooting concepts from this specific chapter so you can diagnose issues with total confidence. So, here's our roadmap for this chapter. First, we'll talk about unlearning that ingrained IPv4 muscle memory. Then, we'll look at the dual-stack reality, the PMTUD black hole, dive into tunnels, VPNs, and NAT64, and finally, wrap up with the golden rules. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Unlearning IPv4 Muscle Memory, Resetting Your Troubleshooting Baseline. To really troubleshoot IPv6 effectively, you've got to just let go of some of those deep-rooted network habits. IPv6 isn't just a bigger address space slapped onto our old networks. It's fundamentally different. For instance, broadcast traffic, it is completely dead, gone. It's been entirely replaced by multicast, meaning those old ping commands to 255.255.255.255 are totally meaningless now. Plus, NAT is largely a thing of the past. Every device in an IPv6 network is potentially globally routable. That means your entire approach to firewall design and security assumptions has to change from the ground up. You might be used to seeing exactly one IP address per interface in the old world. Well, in IPv6, it's totally normal for a single interface to juggle multiple addresses simultaneously. You'll routinely see a link local address, a global unicast address, and temporary privacy addresses all living side by side at the exact same time. It's not a misconfiguration. So never troubleshoot multiple addresses on a single interface as an error unless specific addresses are actually outright missing or sitting in a failed state.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, the dual stack reality, and why things fail silently.
If you're running both IPv4 and IPv6 simultaneously, which, let's be real, is most production networks today, critical failures can hide right under your nose. Because of an algorithm called Happy Eyeballs, defined in RFC 8305, your web browser is always going to prefer IPv6. But if that IPv6 path is broken, you won't always see an outright error. Instead, the browser incurs a 250 millisecond delay before falling back to race against IPv4. So, a broken IPv6 path secretly penalizes every single connection with a latency hit. Everything seems fine, but you're actually dealing with slow page loads and weird intermittent issues. Another silent killer? Duplicate address detection, or DAD failures. When a host wants to use an address, it sends out a multicast message just to make sure no one else has it. But if you have identical MAC addresses, like say from rapidly cloned virtual machines, that detection fails. The system spots a conflict, and your address gets flagged as dead failed or tentative. The end result? Absolutely zero global connectivity for that machine. And the kicker is, you have to manually check the interface status to even spot it. And think about how hosts actually find their way out of the network. Unlike IPv4, where DHCP hands out a nice, reliable gateway lease, IPv6 hosts rely completely on periodic router advertisements, or RAs, to keep their default route alive. If a misconfigured switch happens to block these RAs, your default route simply vanishes without warning. There's no explicit gateway renewal request from the client, it just sits there waiting for the router. If the router stays silent, your network literally drops off the map. That brings us to Section 3, the PMTUD black hole. The mystery of hanging transfers. This is honestly one of the most common and, frankly, infuriating issues for system administrators. The classic symptom is incredibly deceptive. Let's say you can ping a server perfectly fine, but an SSH session, a secure web page, or a large file copy just totally stalls out right after the initial TCP handshake. If that's happening, you are almost certainly looking at a PMTU issue. Small packets slide right through the network without a problem, but large packets are just getting completely swallowed up. So what's actually going on here? Well, PMTD stands for Path MTU Discovery. When a host sends a large packet and it hits a router with a smaller maximum transmission unit limit, that router drops the packet. It's then supposed to generate an ICMP v6 type 2 message basically saying, hey, packet too big. The sender gets that memo, shrinks the packet size, and tries again. But the black hole happens when some overzealous legacy firewall in the middle decides to play bouncer and outright blocks that critical ICMP v6 type 2 message. The sender never gets the alert, keeps firing off large packets, and your connection just hangs forever.
To fix this silent killer, you absolutely must permit ICMPv6 Type 2 inbound on all firewalls in your path. Alternatively, you can configure TCP MSS clamping on your router interfaces to artificially lower the negotiated packet size. Oh, and a quick pro tip, the absolute minimum MTU for IPv6 is 1280 bytes. Never ever configure it lower than that or you're just violating the protocol standards entirely. Now for Section 4, Tunnels, VPNs, and NAT64, Navigating Translation and Encapsulation.
Let's look at how IPv6 talks to legacy IPv4 networks in production. When bridging that gap between IPv6-only clients and IP4 servers, NAT64 and DNS64 are brilliant tools. DNS64 basically synthesizes fake IPv6 addresses for legacy servers and routes them into NAT64. But this falls apart spectacularly if an application bypasses DNS and hardcodes an IP4 address directly, like literally trying to connect to 1.2.3.4. That completely bypasses the DNS64 synthesis and breaks the connection. Also, if you happen to still see the 6-to-4 Anycast address, 192.88.99.1, floating around your environment, just know that it is officially deprecated and super unreliable. It is definitely time to phase that out. And we have to talk about how this impacts the remote workspace. If your legacy VPN client isn't explicitly configured to tunnel IPv6 traffic, it's going to do one of two very bad things. It will either cause a split tunnel leak, ignoring IPv6 traffic and letting it flow out to the open internet natively, which completely bypasses your corporate security policies and exposes the user's real IP. Or it'll just apply a total block, preventing all IPv6 traffic but failing to tunnel it. That means your dual-stack users simply lose access to modern resources. Neither is a great day at the office. Finally, Section 5, the Golden Rules, Essential Practices for IPv6 Survival. As we wrap up this explainer on Chapter 4, let's cement the foundational rules derived from the Virtualization Options research to keep your rollout from collapsing. First, certain ICMPv6 types are strictly mandatory for a functioning network. Type 1 is for unreachability, Type 2 is for that critical PMTUD process we just talked about, and Type 3 is for time exceeded. Most importantly, you need types 133 through 137. Those manage Neighbor Discovery Protocol, or NDP, which replaces legacy ARP. If hosts can't solicit routers or resolve addresses with these exact message types, literally nothing will route. On the security front, you've got to proactively drop atomic fragments at the firewall to prevent known bypass risks that are outlined in RFC 8021. You also need to audit your middle boxes, like your load balancers, to make sure they aren't silently dropping packets just because they contain unknown IPv6 extension headers. And finally, watch out for rogue router advertisements. Honestly, something as simple as a default Docker container bridge network can accidentally broadcast RAs and hijack your entire subnet. Implementing RA guard on your switch access ports stops that nonsense immediately. I really cannot stress this quote from the source material enough. Never block ICMPv6 entirely. Applying your old legacy IPv4 firewall habit of dropping all ICMP traffic out of some vague sense of security will instantly and silently destroy your IPv6 network. It breaks address resolution, it breaks packet sizing, and it completely breaks multicast memberships. Just don't do it. So, I'll leave you with this critical question to ponder as you head back to your networks. Are your old, comfortable IPv4 security habits the very thing secretly holding back your modern network infrastructure? It's time to test both stacks independently, update those firewalls, and embrace the new rules of the protocol. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and happy troubleshooting.